Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show here in Brooklyn, and joined today by a master pianist and a really humble cat, Kenny Barron. Welcome to the program, my man.
Thank you, thank you.
Can you just talk to the audience, hearing that tune there, I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you learned to craft a beginning, a middle, and an end of a solo. Was it with your brother Bill? When was the earliest that you learned how to do that?
Well, certainly that had a lot to do with it. It was my first gig, but just being around older people. I had my first gig when I was 14, 15, playing in a dance band, actually, the Melvin Orchestra. But again, being around those older people and listening to what they were doing, that helped immensely.
What were they doing?
Well, they were playing.
Right, but in terms of dynamics, in terms of telling a story, because a lot of cats today, younger cats, my generation, that they start at 10, it never goes down. It stays at 10.
Yeah, well, no, that's, one of the things you learn at that age, playing for dancers especially, and playing for singers, is dynamics. Is that you have to start somewhere, so your story has to start here, and then you have to build it up. And then there's hills and valleys, so it'll go up and come down, go up, come down, in the course of, especially playing with a group, so you don't want it to be triple forte all the way through.
Right.
So there has to be some dynamics. Each person starts a solo. They usually start their solo here, and then they peak, and then the next person solos, and you start down, and you give them some place to start from, So that's basically what it's about.
How much of it had to do with the fact that not everything was amplified when you were starting in those dance bands, and that I mean, where you had your ears, you had to be listening because the bass was not plugged in.
Bass
So, I
wasn't
mean, can you
amplified.
talk about those early dance band days and how your ears grew from that?
Well, nothing was amplified. The bass player basically used the house system, it's a microphone sometimes stuck in the bridge, and that was it. Sometimes the sound system was almost non-existent. If anybody got the microphone, it was the singer.
Exactly. Exactly. We want to hear the voice.
Yeah, so that's the person who got the microphone. But I mean, you learn to listen. You learn to listen. If you can't hear somebody, then maybe you're playing too loud.
Do you have a memory of when you were young and you kind of had that? Maybe it was nonverbal, but you kind of walked away.
It was mostly nonverbal. It was mostly nobody said, "Oh, do this, do that." It was mostly nonverbal and just listening and observing and seeing how things went, how the shape of a song went, and you learn that just from observing and checking things out. I should be loud here. I should be soft here. And so you learn those things just by osmosis, actually.
This is just so great to hang with you, Matt. The late Mel Martin, when I was interviewing him, he said Kenny can play many styles. He can go where you want to with the music. Okay, and there were, he was talking about you. There's only a handful of people that can go when people take the music into a psychedelic or blues or funk or. But where did you learn that ability? I mean, you've played with all the cats, your peers, but I mean, the idea of going where the music takes you. How did you learn to be that flexible within the music? Some people just get too locked into if somebody goes out and starts doing something different, it throws them off.
Yeah, I think that comes from just listening. Again, listening, I can't stress that enough. I listen to all kinds of music. When I was coming up, like during the 50s, I listened to doo-wop.
Sure. James
then,
Gadsden was a doo-wopper.
Yeah.
Were you a singer?
Huh?
Were you singing?
No. In the shower. And then occasionally Buster Williams we would get together sometimes.
Buster would play. You would play piano and sing, and he played.
No, we just sing.
Just doo-wop.
He grew up listening to this. We're the same age, baby. He's a year older than me.
Sure.
But we grew up listening to the same thing. He's from Camden, New Jersey. I'm from Philly. So it was all part of. There's a certain thing, like young guys that they listen to a particular thing. That's what we listen to. Doo-wop, and we had a love for that and a love for people like Aretha Franklin and, so. And when you have to play that kind of music, it becomes a lot easier because you've heard it. Maybe you've never played it, but you've heard it, so you have some sort of experience with it. I love Latin music, Brazilian music. So you hear all that stuff. Oh, okay. Funk. Who doesn't love James Brown?
Right. Of course, that word wasn't in the lexicon for a long time when you were. There was no word for funk.
Well, there was. And there were during the late 50s. Yeah, something was funky.
Something was funky, right?
Or it was soulful.
It was soulful. Yeah, I dig.
Yeah, so that's where it was around. But to be able to play and feel comfortable in those kinds of styles, I mean, hearing them. And knowing what to do. When
did you start in a R&B band before you started playing bebop?
Yeah, that's what I used to play with the orchestra that my brother got me the gig with, the Mel Melvin Orchestra.
All right, so let's just be very clear. I want to be clear. When I hear orchestra, I think big band, but I'm talking more like an R&B band. Like Tootie Heath was in an R&B band. Sonny was Train,
Yeah.
So you were. I'm talking about before you started playing bebop.
Yeah, this wasn't a big band. It was that was just what he called it, the Mel Melvin Orchestra. But it was basically a small band, maybe 6 or 7 pieces, and they had arrangements. Actually, they had a couple by Benny Golson, I remember.
Benny, Killer Joe. It was before Killer Joe.
Oh, yeah, before Killer Joe. Yeah, But basically, we had to play for a singer. You had to play for a dancer, usually what we call a shake dancer or interpretive dancer, but scantily clad.
Burlesque houses.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
You were in burlesque houses in Philly.
Oh, I don't know if you'd call them that. But also you'd have to play for a comedian. So it was a variety show kind of thing, you know.
Is it possible for you to just sort of, for the audience, play like how you would play for a comedian? I mean, how you would, I mean, would you wait for them to they'd say a joke and then you'd improv? Could you demonstrate a little bit?
This is hard to demonstrate because unless you tell a joke. But it would be, I don't know if you ever heard Red Fox.
Sure.
Well, you know, Red Fox always had a pianist. And the pianist would just tinkle. He wouldn't be playing anything in particular. You know, but he would just, what Philly Joe used to call reminisce. And that's all it was, just playing some chords and very, very softly, you know. And then sometimes if Red would hit a punchline, he might emphasize that by playing a little stronger. But other than that, you know, it wasn't anything in particular. It was just reminiscing, you know.
Because when I interviewed Ahmad Jamal, he would talk about literally playing bass or playing piano and drums for scantily clad women, and they would play 8-hour gigs where they just switch back and forth between drums and piano and play all. These were gigs. Is that something along? Those were the first gigs you had?
Not 8 hours. No. No, we would play. First of all, they were called cabarets. What we played, they were called cabarets. This is where people would bring their own food and alcohol, and they would have to buy a setup, which is club soda or whatever. Mixers and stuff like that, and we would play for dancing. So we would play dance music, which was rhythm and blues, which at the time was really more related to playing songs based on the blues, and I got rhythm, you know, at the time. And we had to play for and the dancers. I mean, like the interpretive dancers or shake dancers. They dance
the shake dancers, yeah. The shake dancers, yeah.
They would dance a lot to Duke Ellington. You know, Duke Ellington, a favorite song in Jimmy Forrest, Night Train. You know, they would do Caravan, You Go to My Head. So I learned repertoire doing that kind of stuff. And I'm like 15 years old. You're
starting to develop a deep bag of tunes.
Yeah.
But I mean, would it be for the audience? What people are asking, what like when they hear R&B today, they're thinking something completely different. Like, could you demonstrate like a tune that you played for shake dancers or the blues?
Well, I'm trying to think. What would we play? Well, a lot of times we just play a shuffle. You know, something like that.
Unbelievable. I mean, can you talk in looking back and now forward, like when I talked to Tootie Heath or, you know, could have been Norman Connors or, God, Reggie Workman. I mean, how much of the fact that you guys came up playing blues was right alongside jazz at that time. Mm-hmm. How much of that helped music grow, specifically bebop at that time? Where you have people today starting with jazz. They start with a jazz curriculum or a certain book, but they don't stretch back far enough. I mean, that's the most profound thing about whether it's Charlie Neville or Sonny or yourself, that you guys were not coming up, even though you were learning Duke Ellington tunes, you were not playing jazz right off the bat. You're playing blues.
Yeah, blues, and I got rhythm. And I think it's terribly important. You know, I think it's terribly important.
How explain the significance of how the vocabulary can grow because of that, or how it did grow.
Well, I think that's involved, and I don't know if I have the words to do that. You know,
I'm stretching you out, man. It was a long cab ride over here.
Yeah. But just in terms of phrasing, in terms of storytelling, in terms of choice of notes, all of those things became a part of that. You know, and just trying to get the right feeling. and that feeling permeates everything. The feeling of the blues permeates everything, Now, as today, music is a lot more complicated, but even the best players, the best young players, know how to do that. They know how to infuse that feeling into it, the blues feeling, because I think it's part and parcel of the music.
How do the young cats, being that you were on the bandstand, what are the qualities that you need to do to integrate that feel? I mean, is it something that you can learn in academia, or is it more just being?
I don't think you can learn it in academia. I really don't think you can. You have to experience it, and unfortunately, those kinds of experiences for young people are few and far between. They don't get that kind of. They get other kinds of experiences. Academia certainly turns out really great musicians who can sight read anything, play in any time signature. But Ben Riley, bless his soul, just passed away.
He did. We just lost Ben. Yeah, that's right. We just lost Ben.
Yeah, but he one time he made a statement talking about young players. And the fact that sometimes their music seems just so intellectual. And then Ben made a statement. He said, well, they'll be okay. They just haven't had their hearts broken yet.
So yeah, you got to get heartbroken. As long as there's women, that's what Steve Swallow said. As long as there's women to break your heart, there'll always be the blues.
Yeah. So until something happens emotionally, you don't have anything to talk about.
That was what Tootie told me, though. He said that you guys were basing your music off the pentatonic scale, and that in school now they've added to the pentatonic scale. They teach you about sequencing. They teach you about changes. You guys were growing up not even knowing what that stuff was.
Well, I won't say that.
You say, tell me what you said.
I mean, it wasn't codified, but we knew what it was.
Explain what, in the sense of music, what do you mean codified?
It wasn't set into, how can it wasn't put in a sequential order so that it can be disseminated.
I dig.
Yeah, it was just, but it's something you heard, you knew, and you knew what a pentatonic scale was, 5 notes, that it worked over the blues. And then gradually you expanded that to the other things. And when you started playing bebop, check these colors out. You got a lot more colors to deal with in terms of your lines, a lot more colors to deal with in terms of voicings, harmony, and stuff like that. So all of that just comes with experience, Now, young guys today, I will say that they're much further along at a young age than I was,
In terms of what?
In terms of their harmonic understanding of harmonics and things like that, because they actually learn it. They learn about that in school. It's stressed, and they have to do a lot of writing, things like that. So it's really stressed harmonics and things like that.
But the institute, the Blakeys, the Dizzies, the institutions, the Road Warriors, that apprenticeship is not there.
No, it's not there.
And that's a huge law. I mean, you can learn you can be as wonkish as you want, but it's going to, like Ben said, they have, it's more than just getting your heart broken. It's not having that bandstand experience where they tell you were you told to get off the bandstand at any point ever in your life?
No.
But what I'm talking about. I mean, Dick Burke would tell me at Jimbo's, he would get up there and try to play, and they'd all just walk off the bandstand.
Yeah, Jimbo, you're in San Francisco.
Yeah, wow. Exactly. Yeah. But I'm saying that apprenticeship is not there.
No, it's not.
And why was that so vital for your generation?
Well, it was just vital because that was your school. They didn't have higher institutions of learning, teaching jazz, and that was your school. That was your school, not just in terms of music, but in terms of other things as well. Working with Dizzy. Dizzy was a great teacher, but he didn't sit me down and say, do this. But, but just listening to him, observing. But occasionally he would say, you could try voicing this chord like this, or try voicing this chord like that. The little subtle things that give you an aha moment. Oh, okay, and that leads to something else that opens you up to other things, and you try. Oh, wow, So and that's what it's about. That kind of experience.
Talking to Kenny Barron here on the Jake Feinberg Show live on Facebook. Keep the comments coming in. People are loving this all over the world. What did your brother feel about the word jazz, Yusef Lateef? I mean, the idea that, did they call the music jazz?
Yeah, they did.
They did.
They did. Yeah, they had no feelings against or for. You know, that happened with Yusef. When I was working with Yusef, he didn't want to call his music jazz.
He didn't?
No.
And why didn't he want to?
He said he looked in a Webster's dictionary under the word jazz, and the definition was that which is noisy and discordant. And it
Which
also,
is fine.
And it also meant to have sex.
Right.
You know, so
Right. Jazz.
Yeah, he said he didn't want to use that word.
Well, I was talking to Warren Smith up in Harlem, and he said that Max Roach had a big problem because the naval bases, I mean, down in New Orleans, that's what it was. People would be playing stride or boogie woogie in the house of ill repute.
Ill repute, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But you're telling me, like, your brother, at that point, when you and your brother started to really hit on the bandstand, he wasn't hung up with the word jazz.
No. Neither was I at the time. You know, I mean, you grow into certain things. You know, when you listen to someone else's opinion about it. You know, and during the late '60s, and that's when it kind of became apparent. And maybe, you know, and even Duke, while he used the word jazz, there's really only two kinds of music, you know, good and bad.
That's subjective too.
Yeah,
but he said something about keeping 1 foot in the future and 1 foot in the blues, and that's what would make it interesting.
Yeah.
But in terms of the way that term is used today, I mean, have we gotten to the point where it's all too stratified? You have cool jazz, you have smooth jazz, you have this. I mean, is there too many options, and you get 15 different answers for that word now?
Yeah, you do. And what you do is look at some of the jazz festivals that are happening now. You know, you won't find what I consider a jazz artist on there at all. You know.
Or even, I mean, I'm now blanking on who I was talking to, but blues festivals in the Bay Area, you won't have one black artist playing blues.
Yeah, which is weird.
It's one way to put it, but it's also like not authentic.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think that's when you play in a live performance, what is on the bandstand? What does authenticity mean to Kenny Barron? Like, what do you want to convey to the audience musically to get your point across, that you're playing something called melodic improvisation? I just don't like that word jazz. But when you're playing, what is authentic music to Kenny Barron when you're on the bandstand?
For me, it's what I'm trying to do is to reach people on an emotional level. You know, that's what I'm trying to do. I still believe deeply in swing, which I've heard many young people say, "Oh no, don't swing." Tell the drummer, "No, don't swing. That's wrong." You know, that's old. You know, and it's funny, because the other day I was listening to the train at the Feinberg, and it was swinging. It was swinging, you know, and it touched me. You know, some of the music that the young guys write is music that makes me say, as opposed to, "Oh yeah." You know, and that's the difference.
It's in the head and not in the heart.
Yeah. I mean, there's a compromise where you can combine the two. You know, music that's intellectually rewarding, but also emotionally rewarding. You know, I remember one incident. I was playing at Bradley's with Ben and Ray Drummond, and there was a friend of mine who was an actor, Ted Ross, played. He was in The Wiz.
Yeah.
And he was also in the movie Arthur. He played with Dudley Moore.
Sure.
He played his butler.
Wow.
But he was there.
Yeah.
This particular night, and when we came off the bandstand, he was crying, literally. He was crying, and he said, "Man, I didn't mean to get sloppy, but you guys was just swinging so hard." You know, and that's what I'm after. That's what I want to do. You know, or if I want to be able to play a ballad and move people and make people cry. I want to do that. You know, I mean, that has literally happened twice in my life.
Can you talk about those experiences?
Yeah. One time was in Japan, and I was playing with Buster. I think it was Buster and Ben.
Trio,
yeah. And we were playing a little small club. It was actually somebody's house. But
Really?
It was a performance space.
Sure.
But somebody lived there. And I kept hearing this sniffling behind me. I thought maybe somebody had a cold or something. And when we got off, the owner came over and said, the young girl was a young lady. She was just in tears, And then the time I just mentioned with Ted Ross. And there was another time.
Yeah, don't worry about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it was another time in Oregon, I think. In the same situation. Playing a ballad, and somebody was crying. So that's what I'm after. I want to make that happen, And you can't always, but, because you have to be in the right space to make that happen.
How important is it? I was interviewing Chris Parker, the drummer, yesterday, and he talked about, in the rhythm section, actually bonding with the people personally and getting to be comfortable with them as people. And then it makes it easier on the bandstand to really, you want to say, swing or cook. Have you been in situations on the bandstand with people that you can't stand and you have to figure, and you still have to, and you can still make the music work? Or is there a personality? Is it important? Is it essential for you to have personal integrity and respect for the people that you're playing with?
Well, that you have to have integrity and respect. I think that's important. So you do have to have that. And plus, I don't think I've ever been on a bandstand where I can say I couldn't stand this person. I may not have, been crazy about the way they played, but you make it work, and that's what being professional is. You make it work, and you don't sit there and complain and bitch and moan, so to speak. You make it work, That's the best I can tell you. When you're on the bandstand, you're there to do a particular thing. And even if the band is sad, there's always something you can take away from it, something you can learn from that situation. Even if it's that, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. Even if it's that. But there's something musically you can learn from each situation you're in.
When was the first time, if ever, that you played in a setting with double drums?
We mean double drums.
Two trap sets.
Oh, wow. Have I ever?
Well, Buddy Rich sort of popularized it, and it became big with the psychedelic rock bands, but Don Ellis did a lot of it. But I'm just like, I was thinking about Kenny. I'm like, I wonder if there was ever this setting where he played. I know you play with percussionists with the drummer, but I'm just talking about two trap sets where they were one was keeping the rhythm, the other one was accentuating it so that the cat could actually solo and go off and do his thing.
I've never done that.
No double drums.
No double drums. I've heard, actually not too long ago, the drummer that's in my trio, Jonathan Blake, he had a band and he used another drummer named Joe Dyson and Dana Stevens and Desron Douglas. And I went to hear them. I loved it because they knew how to play together and stay out of each other's way, So one person would be concentrating more on time, and the other person would be looser, and then they would change. I mean, not okay, now it's time, but
exactly.
You just kind of nod, and you listen, and you say okay, But yeah, it was great, But I've never actually played.
It's fascinating. I came in here this morning, and you had Phil Woods playing, and I wanted to ask you this. That word fusion gets thrown around a lot. I remember when I interviewed Phil, rest in peace, he said the first fusion music was Dizzy and Chano Pozo. Do you agree?
I would agree. Yeah, it was Latin and bebop.
Right.
Yeah.
So that word, when did you first hear that word as described? And was that music hard for you because it was not, you couldn't really get into a groove? It was hard to find that groove in that frenetic, when they started calling it fusion music.
No, fusion had to do more with, at least to my recollection, it came into play when people were kind of putting together rock and jazz. The rock rhythms or funk rhythms and jazz. I didn't really have a problem with it.
The albums you made with that could be considered that are rocking, but I'm just trying to figure out that word. People use that word so much, but when Phil told me in the interview, It's like that was in the 40s when that fusion music started coming.
But
out.
I'm sure they didn't call it that then.
I don't think not at all.
They didn't call it that.
You know.
But it was a fusion of the fusing of two different styles, melding of two different styles, two different things. So I'm sure that has happened all the time. Or a lot of times. People just didn't know what to call it. I mean, like today, for instance, a former student of mine, Sonny Jane, who's a drummer. He's from India, or his people are from India, and he kind of does that very well, melding jazz improvisation and Indian rhythms and things like that. And it works really well. There's a singer I know who's from. Again, I don't know if she's born in India, but I think her people are from India. And she does the same thing. Kavita Shah is her name. And she's done a great thing with combining Indian scales and ragas and things like that with other kinds of stuff. So, there's all kinds of ways to do that.
Do you remember like how your first studio date or how you got established in the studios? Did your brother play a role in that, or how did you get into were you getting the calls from the what were they called? I cannot always forget the name of that registry that we called
radio registry.
Yeah, because that phone was ringing off the hook for you, man.
No, it wasn't.
Well, the sessions you wound up on all the sessions you wound up on were pretty damn good.
Yeah,
I was a side man.
Radio registry. That basically those were people who were signed up with that. They basically were doing a lot of jingles and commercials and stuff like that. So yeah, they needed that because they would be in the studio all day, every day. I wasn't in that.
Right.
I wish I was. I mean.
Did you want to be in the studios, or is it just?
It just never happened. It started to disappear shortly after I moved to New York. I mean, I would come to New York. Well, a telling thing is when you did a recording in New York. During that time, you had to go to the union to pick up your check because they took out taxes. So you had to go to the union. And I would go there and pick up my one check or two checks. But then there would be a whole bunch of guys who would be picking up 20, 30 checks.
A lot of taxes.
Huh?
A lot of taxes.
A lot of taxes, but also, now these were the real studio guys.
Okay, yeah, but I mean, we're talking to a guy, Kenny Barron, I mean, Yusef Lateef, Freddie Hubbard. I mean, I would say that it's quality over quantity. I know you weren't in there doing Tide commercials and things like that.
No, it wasn't.
Okay, but you were playing the music of the mother. You were playing the music, the original music.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it almost seems like you were pretty selective about what you. Although those cats wanted you on it.
No, I wasn't being selective. If somebody called me for a record date, yes.
I'll take it. Yeah,
especially at that time. But I think my first record was actually with my brother.
Yeah.
It was called The Stylings of Bill Barron, and hadn't moved to New York. I was still living in Philly, and it was Ted Curson, Jimmy Garrison, and I think Frankie Dunlap, if I remember correctly. And it was done for Savoy Records, and we recorded it in Newark.
Savoy was based in New York, or where was that? Where was that company, Savoy?
I don't know.
The Savoy Ballroom was in New York, obviously. But,
I don't think it was. One had nothing to do with the other. Savoy Records was owned by a guy named Herman Lubinsky, who was known for being cheap. You
get paid for the session?
Oh yeah,
yeah, okay.
Get paid. And it was like I said, it was in Newark, and it was right near the train station. I remember that, right near the Newark train station.
How old were you?
I was 16 or 17. Maybe.
First discography, 16 years old, playing piano with your brother.
Yeah, so I think it was the first record I did. And then I moved to New York, and I think the first record I did was actually with a trumpet player named Dave Burns. Who,
I thought that cat. I'm thinking of a drummer, Burns, but that's a different cat.
Yeah, different guy.
Yeah, so
trumpet player.
This was a trumpet. Who was this cat? I don't even know who that cat was.
I think he was a dizzy for a long time. When I met him, I started working with James Moody.
Yeah.
So he was in that band when I first came to New York, and he asked me about doing this record, and we did it in Brooklyn, actually, at like a Masonic Hall or something like that.
Masonic Temple, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. It was Dave Burns, and it was a saxophone player from Newark. I don't know whatever happened to him, named Herbie Morgan. Good, he was really good. Steve Davis played bass.
Sure.
And Edgar Bateman was the drummer.
This guy was sitting there eating eggs this morning before I came over here, and I was like, I'm going to ask you about the beat, specifically the New Orleans beat of when you first got a chance to play with Idris Muhammad. What was the rhythm that he was bringing into the music? This album, Drums Piece, I forget the exact name for Prestige, but it is ferocious. And I'm just wondering about what Idris, in terms of that New Orleans sound, what he brought to the music.
Idris was just funky. It's the best word to use. He was just funky. And it wasn't overt sometimes. Sometimes it was on simmer, But that funk was just, he could play in the pocket. That's He could definitely play in the pocket, and he was there. He was there when you need, and it kind of supported whatever you needed to do. And I only recorded with him. I think I recorded with him only one time.
Right.
Yeah. But I loved playing with him that one time, and I loved listening to him.
Did he have a different way of accentuating the bass drum and how he played?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it was that different, from other drummers from that in that genre.
Like James Black or
James,
Ed Blackwell.
They were a little bit different.
How?
I think they kind of listened to more avant-garde music, so some of that was in there as well as the solid rhythm. But sometimes they could branch away from that, And I'm sure that Idris could do that too. But
he was just more in the funk, simmering on the simmering.
He was more in the pocket, but he could play straight ahead. He could definitely do that as well.
What is I think it's important. I mean, Dick Burke and Glenn Moore, they raved about your brother. He's been gone for a while, but you talk about the legacy of Bill Barron, and I want to make sure people know what his significance to the scene, because he was a great leader.
Yeah, well, his music, first of all, was really different. He played mostly his own original music.
Really?
Yeah.
No cover, no standards.
No standards. He almost never did standards. There was a lot of people who say that he and Train kind of came up together. I think they were in the same band together or something, if I remember. But I remember there was supposed to be this tape. I never heard it. I just heard reading about it. This tape with my brother and Train and this Hassan Ibn Ali.
Yes.
I've never heard this tape.
Did you get to play with? Did you know Hassan from Philly? Because he was a mercurial cat.
Oh yeah, I know him. I met him when I was a kid, and he used to, before I actually really started playing, and he would come by to hang out with Bill, and he would just he would say hello to my mother and head straight for the piano, But he was definitely different, A lot of people thought it was Monk who was his influence. But as he got older, he said, no, it's Elmo Hope.
Bertha Hope's watching this right now. That is phenomenal. I mean, because Hassan Ibn Ali, he didn't even get a chance to record that much.
I only know of one record with Max.
Yeah, exactly.
That's one record I know of. Yeah.
What was it about Philly that was such a bastion of African American classical music? Why were the Cats so? I mean, it just. You can't. The list doesn't ever end. Odine Pope, Sherman Ferguson, Kenny Barron, Bill Barron, John Coltrane, Reggie Workman, Mickey Roker, the Brecker brothers. It doesn't. It just. There's a deep well, man. Where did that reservoir? Why was it at such a, almost as more than New York?
Yeah, that's. I don't know why. I'm just glad that I was around.
Yeah, but what did that community? The music was coming out of the community. It was being built out of the community.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of the musicians lived in the same area, Well, no, I can't say that. Can't really say that. But I know in my area, Train lived not too far from me. Walking distance. It's on 33rd Street. And I remember around the corner on 28th Street, Shirley Scott lived. You know, and there was guys that you may not know who played with my brother, a bass player, who lived right around the corner. So,
What was that cat's name?
Mitchell. You never heard of him.
Never heard of him. All right.
No. He and my brother played a lot together. And one of the things I do remember is that when my brother moved to New York, a lot of these guys would stop by to see my mother. So that was, that kind of thing was happening. You know, come by and say, "Hey, Miss Barron, I just come by to see how you doing." You know, so that was a sense of community. But in terms of what you're asking about, what it was that
The language, the regional language.
Yeah, that made that happen. I can't really tell you.
Mm-hmm.
I just knew that. One of the things that helped, first of all, was venues. There were a lot of clubs there.
Peps,
Showboat,
Spider Kelly's,
which was one of my first gigs.
What was that? Who was in on? Was that like just a jam session, or was it? It was actually
No,
it was a gig.
It wasn't a jam session gig. I'm trying to remember who I played there with. Might have been a saxophone player named Sam Reed, maybe. I'm not sure about that.
Buster talked about Sam Reed. Yeah.
Yeah. But and that was a long, rough gig because you played 3 matinees. You played,
wow.
You played a matinee, and you at night as well. You played a matinee on Monday, like from 4 to 7, and then at night, and then you played a matinee on Wednesday from 4 to 7, and then a matinee on Saturday from 4 to 7. So that was you had to be in shape for that.
What was the pay like?
I don't remember. It wasn't much. I don't know if you made $100 a week. This is I'm talking about the late 50s or early 60s.
Still, you're getting bread in your pocket, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, despite the Kellys, there was another place called the Sahara on 15th Street.
The Showboat, maybe.
Well, the Showboat, yeah. The Showboat was basically wasn't for local people.
It was for big acts coming into town.
Yeah, for people coming from New York. Showboat and Peps, both. Mostly for people coming from New York. But now what would happen also is that a lot of guys who would come from New York knew guys in Philly. So they would hire guys in Philly, which is how I met Yusuf. I met Yusuf the year I graduated from high school. He came through Philly, and I think he had Showboat. We played the Showboat, and Showboat had a matinee, same thing 4 to 7, and his piano player missed the flight from Detroit. So he called Jimmy Heath. Hey, Jimmy, you know anybody? So I had been working with Jimmy off and on, and so Jimmy gave him my number. So I went and played the matinee.
Wow.
And it was great. I loved it. And about a month later, 2 months later, I get a call from him. Can you come to Detroit? And he had a gig at a place called the Minor Key. So
I've never heard of that club. The Minor Key.
Minor Key in Detroit. We talk to somebody from Detroit. They'll know.
Yeah.
So I made the gig, and there was a drummer from Philly who passed away who also did the gig, named Ronald Tucker. They called him the Flame because he had red hair. But at the end of that gig, Brother Yusuf said, "Listen, I want you to. I have a record day coming up, and I want you to write some music." And I was a little, intimidated.
Yeah.
About doing that.
He wanted you to write some totally new material, nothing that you had already possibly crafted.
Well, I wasn't really into writing that much at the time. So what he actually wanted was for me to arrange a song called "Every Day I Fall in Love," and one original song. So I wrote a song, an original called "Revelation," which is a D minor blues. And then I arranged this other piece called "Every Day I Fall in Love." The instrumentation was different. But I didn't play on the record, but I went to New York, and it was a studio, the Plaza, over top of Radio City at the time. And I walked in the studio, and there's Clark Terry and Richard Davis, Ben Tucker on bass, Joe Zawinul, piano.
Wow.
Lex Humphreys on drums, who I did know. Lex Humphreys on drums.
You about 18 at this point, or how old were you?
Yeah, about 18.
Wow.
And then...
two keyboards? I mean, two pianists? Zawinul was there, and you were there too?
No, I wasn't playing.
You were bringing in your compositions?
Yeah, I was just there.
Wow.
And he also had oboe. Well, he played oboe, but a bassoon. A guy named Jose Taylor, and played bassoon. And there was another tenor. In terms of right name, I think his name was a baritone. He played baritone, named Tate Houston. You know, so I mean, for me, that was a thrill to be in it, to meet these guys. You know, and Joe Zawinul, every time I would see him many years later, he would still talk about that.
Really? So
Yeah.
anyway, I just want to be clear about this. You did the gig with Yusef in Detroit, and he said, "I got a record date coming up, and I want you to write some music for it."
Yeah.
So you brought the music that day to the session. Is that right?
Yeah.
So those cats were reading it for the first
Oh, yeah,
time.
but that's what they did.
Explain though, because we got cats, people that are in the studio today, they take 40 minutes to get the bass drum sound to sound good.
Oh,
There's
no.
this like overly meticulous aspect to perfection now that didn't exist before.
No.
Explain the mindset of going in and knowing you had a hit, maybe one or two takes, and that was it.
That was it. You know, nobody did, 10 takes or anything like that, you know. First of all, these guys could read. They could read anything.
Read flypaper.
Yeah, you know. And they knew how to interpret. So there was no problems, you know. In terms of getting the sound, it wasn't a big thing then. I mean, like it is now, you know. It wasn't, you know. Yeah, like you said, you mentioned trying to get the bass drum sound right, you know. No, nobody spent that kind of time.
Well, but also baffles were not up, and the engineer did not have as much say insofar as dictating the sound. I mean, it was more communal. It was Richard Davis saying, "Hey, play, I need to play a little bit on this." I mean, can you talk about that dialogue? Very popular cat here. The phone's ringing, but before baffles, when it was just the cats in the room and the ability of the musicians to dictate the sound of the music.
Well, I don't think dictated it.
That might be the wrong
they
word.
They knew more about what they wanted.
Okay,
the sound that
that's
they
what I'm
wanted,
talking about.
The sound that they wanted, you know. Now, of course, now there's some engineers who, I mean, you tell them what you want, and this works better. You know.
And back then, Yusef would say, "I don't," it would be like, "No, we're going with what we want, what we like it to sound."
But I
like.
mean, there was never much of a discussion about it. You know, for one thing, we trusted the engineers to do what they do. And I don't know, maybe it's different now because a lot of musicians fancy themselves amateur engineers, and they can actually go in the studio and tweak things themselves. I'm not interested in doing that. But a lot of young players are able to do that. So maybe that's part of that thing that happens now. Everybody says, "Oh, I need more and more." Now I've experienced that at sound checks with certain musicians, and that drives me nuts.
I'd love to see you being driven nuts. But the idea was like the tools are available today. There's just so many other tools that you can make it sound. I mean, I think that's part of my issue now is that cats that are considered pop music or in any kind of music, with all the Pro Tools and stuff, you don't even necessarily need to be a great musician now to be a star, make a lot of money. And I think the lack of authenticity is what's very disturbing to me.
Yeah, the lack of authenticity and the fact that there's all kinds of different ways to cheat.
Yeah, that's right. You couldn't cheat back then.
No. I mean, if you're out of tune, they have auto tune now. Which singers use a lot. They sing flat. Oh, auto tune.
Right? How did I sound? The engineer's terrible. We'll fix it.
Yeah, and then you couldn't do that. You just had to do another take. At the time, you just did another take, or if it was that bad, you just wouldn't get hired again. I'm
going to ask you a question about. Tootie said that he asked Charlie Parker one time, "What do you listen to?" Bird said, "I listen to the radio." and I listen to all the different music on the radio, and I want to find the key that it's in, and I want to learn the changes, but it's all types of music. So you're crossing genres, and then you know how to play all these tunes in every key. Was that something that you did, where you listened to all different types of music and then learned that kind of music?
Yeah. I did listen to all kinds of music. I listened to, well, obviously jazz. I listened to R&B.
What about avant-garde stuff?
Yeah, I listened to that too.
What kind of stuff were you listening to?
You know, well, probably the most important figure for me was Ornette. You know, which, looking back on it, wasn't really that avant-garde. I mean, it was at the time.
What years about?
This is late 50s.
Uh-huh.
Late 50s, you know. But one of the things that impressed me about Ornette, stuff was still very lyrical. The melodies he wrote, the solos he and Don Cherry took, you know, and I loved that band, you know, with Charlie Hayden and Billy Higgins. That was a great band, you know. So for me, I love that group, you know. Now I've listened to other people like Cecil, you know. Cecil was that before avant-garde became a term.
Really, you're right about that. Actually,
you know, Cecil was playing like that. And I remember Rudy Collins telling me that Cecil would play at a place in Harlem called Connie's. He would play there, and he didn't play any different, you know. So I mean, somebody like Cecil, I kind of had to be in the right frame of mind, you know. And so some of it I loved, and some of it I didn't. I'll be honest, you know. Some of it I absolutely loved.
Were you listening to Little Richard and those cats?
Yeah, sure.
Fats
Domino.
Right. Well, you were playing Great Shuffle before. I mean, that dude was playing. That guy was the Shuffle. I mean, but I mean, in terms of crossing genres and not getting stuck in one genre. Well, I mean, cats don't listen to the radio anymore. They don't have to. They have other ways of.
Download everything.
They download it. It's in their iPod or it's Spotify or wherever it is. But it's the idea, and even pop music today is not what it was on the radio. So but with Bird, it was revelatory to me to know that he was playing across all genres, and just searching.
Yeah.
And ultimately that's how your ears grow.
It is. Listening and responding to all kinds of music. Even music you don't necessarily like, you know. But for instance, I do not like country or western. I don't.
Like even the older stuff.
Yeah. You know, and it's just in my DNA. I don't like it. But I don't look down my nose at it.
Sure.
You know. And that's one thing I learned. You don't look down your nose at anything unless you can play it.
Do you listen? Did you learn? I mean, it's not overly complex, but I mean, you don't like it, but you listened to it and played to it to learn.
Yeah.
Listen, I dig.
Listen, you know, anytime some music plays, I think this is true of most musicians. There's like a little keyboard in your head, and you're always figuring out the changes on whatever level. You you know, you're always figuring out the changes.
The Odine Pope told me that him and Train would get together and they'd practice a tune and they'd play it in every key.
Yeah.
Can you talk about those sessions? I mean, that to me, did you have those sessions with your brother and people like that? I mean, where you were that was the practice. The practice was you would play a tune in every key.
I never did that. I mean, I did it many years later.
How does that help? How does that help somebody unlock their ears, or just
Well, it helps because it gets you. If you can play it in B flat, B is recognized for some reason or other. People say that's a hard key.
Yeah.
So that's always in your mind. B is a hard key. So you start from that with it being a hard key, and you have problems right away. And it's about fingering.
Right.
You know, so doing it in all those keys, that's one of the things that help you with. Just your fingering. Because believe it or not, the fingering is different in all those different keys. So you have to find, different ways to finger things. On the piano, now I can't speak about saxophone or trumpet. Trumpet has 3 valves,
But then you'd go to those cut sessions at Pep's or wherever, Spider Kelly's, and they'd be playing all those tunes in different keys. So you had
No, I didn't really do that so much.
really.
No. If you work with Sonny Stitt or somebody like that, yes, he would do that.
You did.
Yeah.
So you had to be on your toes and you had to be prepared.
Yeah. Because George Coleman was into that. Let's play Cherokee and B. And that's a great learning tool.
But as we wrap up here, I wanted to ask you about your experience going to the motherland of Africa. When did you go there?
The first time I went was actually, let's see. No, actually, the first time I went was when I was Yusuf, and that was just on a whim.
Tunisia.
Yeah.
I know this story, so tell the audience. Because you were playing in Italy. So explain to the audience what Yusuf wanted you guys to go see.
Well, we had a gig in Rome, but we had some days off. So we landed in Rome, and we discovered, hey, Tunisia was just a short plane ride from there. So we went and landed in Tunisia. And one of the things we did, Yusuf being Muslim, we went to a lot of different mosques, which I had never been in a mosque before. And we went to a lot of different mosques. And then the other thing that was great is seeing people who are your color everywhere, running the country. You go into an office, and, be they Arab or whatever,
right?
Still your color,
But you were there. I mean, Tootie said it was an awe-inspiring thing to watch the prayer service there.
It was. It was incredible.
Did you ever go there to actually perform?
No, I mean not there.
Not in Tunisia, but I mean like in the motherland.
Oh yeah. First time was in Lesotho.
Where can you tell me where that is? I don't.
That's it's a landlocked country right in the middle of dead center of South Africa.
Dead center of South Africa. What year did you go there?
This was in I don't know. Apartheid was still happening.
Okay. Yeah. A lot of cats would not go there because of that. But okay, so
we didn't go to South Africa. We went to Lesotho. But one of the things this is what was called the Jazz Professors when I was teaching at Rutgers with Larry Ridley and Frank Foster.
Stanley Cowell was there?
Huh?
Was Stanley there?
No.
Foster?
Frank Foster.
Ridley?
Larry Ridley,
wow.
Frank Foster, myself, Freddie Waits. And it was a writer named Mark Crawford who taught at NYU. He also went with us, And Dizzy's was also on the.
What a staff!
Yeah.
What year was this? These kids were
I really don't remember. It was it had to be in the late '60s, maybe.
So you said it was a landlocked area.
Yeah.
And so apartheid was not in effect in that
country. No. But it was a jazz festival there. I met some really beautiful people, and that was the first time. So I played with the jazz professors. Dizzy was there, and he played. And it was just incredible, to see. Lesotho was a beautiful country, beautiful country.
Did you find the audience had different kinds of reactions? I know that Stephen Ferroni, the drummer, when he went there I think this was with Clapton. Maybe this is a little bit different, but it was like a groan that would come out of the audience. I mean, it was almost like the music had such a different significance as it does in the States.
Oh yeah.
Was there anything that stood out as far as the reception from the audience and how they actually received the music?
No, I think they received it. They definitely received it. Yeah, one incident I remember, Freddie Waits just happened to be walking around one day and he passed a school. Young people, like a grammar school. So he decided, we should go play for these kids. So he organized a thing and just went. They didn't have a piano, so Frank Foster went and Larry, and they just played for these kids, and these kids loved it. They really loved it. So for me, it was a great experience. And then played in Senegal. And not in Dakar. It was Saint Louis, which is a place where they also have a jazz festival. It's about 2 hours from.
Was that in this? When was that? When was this?
This was not that long ago.
Yeah.
This is maybe 6, 7.
Yeah, this seems like that's a pretty consistent jazz fest there.
Yeah, and then Cape Town. I played in Cape Town at the jazz festival there, which is Cape Town is absolutely gorgeous. I love it. You know.
You we talked about jingles earlier. You weren't marinating in the studio scene, but when was the first time you crossed paths with Bill Cobham?
Really? Oh, wow.
Because he was a studio cat. I mean, that guy was in the studios, and he was playing country western, and he was playing everything.
Yeah. But the first time I met Billy was, wow, it had to be it was in the early 60s when I first came to New York. You know, and we actually had a trio. It was Billy, myself, and a bassist named John B. Williams.
I love John B. Man. I love that cat.
Yeah, so he was living in New York.
Oh my God! You had a trio. Wait, hold on. You had a trio?
Yeah.
Because those guys wound up going with Horace at some point. They were the rhythm section for Horace. So
yeah.
But you had a trio together.
Yeah, and it was a lot of fun. You know. Yeah, actually, I just talked to Billy. He's trying to organize something for next year for his 75th birthday.
Yeah.
Myself and Ron Carter.
Well, we're in 2018. I was thinking that we would be seeing that trio in Arizona this year.
I think you might.
I mean, it is going to be epic. I mean, that to me is just word before I let you go. Can you just give some words of inspiration for people that might be? We're on the 1 year anniversary of the presidency of Donald Trump. It's been a lot of people say, has it only been 1 year? Some people find it entertaining. Some people say it's the end of democracy. But you've been on this planet a lot longer than I have. Can you shed some wisdom or inspiration, or how you keep yourself together, even if you find yourself getting down or irritated about things?
Well, I don't get down. I get angry.
Yes.
You know.
So how do you channel that? Do you just play music, or do you actually find a way to advocate outside of a melodic improvisation?
I don't know. What do I do? And that's a good question. I know. Besides getting mad, I don't know. I mean, first of all, I try not to watch. Since he became president, I've become a news junkie.
Yeah.
You know, like CNN.
Cable news is at an all-time high. You can't.
Yeah,
I cut my cable because it's so addictive. Yeah.
And then I watch Fox News and really get angry. You know,
what is it the lying? Is it the deception? Is it just the fact that we are suspended in time or even moving backward? What do you get?
Well, for me,
yeah,
it's the lying. It's so evident,
right?
You know, and he tells a lie, and it can be proven that it's not true, and then he doubles down on it. You know, I don't get that. What's the point? You know, and then the one time they were at a thing in Europe, and he kind of pushed his way past some other world leaders so he could be up front, and he stood with his chest puffed out, you know. And see, the thing that I remember from the Bible, and I'm not a big, church-going person, but I remember from the Bible, and he always talks about he's a Christian. Well, the one thing he should remember is that pride goeth before a fall. You know,
say that one more time.
Pride goeth before a fall. You know, and that's where he's headed. You know, and sometimes you see things on Facebook from his supporters. You know, I saw something from this lady when he made this comment about African countries and Haiti. Oh, she supported that 100%. You know, and then so no, I don't like him. I don't think he's human.
The lack of empathy is incredible, but it's also just like the idea that in your experiences, you've crossed paths with people like that. But the fact that he's our president, is what's I think probably the most infuriating thing. Because I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, his base, they don't care if it's a lie.
No, they don't.
It's a cult.
And that's even scarier. You know, the fact that people who are his base. I really believe they would kill for him.
He said it himself. He goes, I could shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue and they would still support me.
Yeah, well, they would.
Right.
You know, but I think they would kill for him.
Well, that's what that's my feeling is that depending on where this investigation goes, is that my concern as we move forward this year and beyond is how many innocent peeps are going to get hurt by his supporters.
By his supporters,
because
yeah.
they actually want the fight. That's why everything is so perverted at this point.
Yeah, yeah.
They are waiting for that fight.
They're waiting for that. Yeah.
You know, and they have this tenuous hold now. But if the arms of justice, which is supposed to, you know, nobody's above the law, if it comes down and drops the hammer on him, then you'll see all. I mean, Ahmad said it to me last year. He goes, the world is already in World War III. So to me, it's just a matter of time before we start seeing. We've already seen a little bit of it.
Yeah.
But how many innocent people are going to get hurt in this country when World War III starts here?
Yeah, and this probably will be where it starts. If he doesn't start it and push a button, in North Korea.
No, he knows. He won't. He's too much of a chicken to do that. What I'm saying is, his supporters.
Yeah.
You know, and so. Could you, before we go, could you play, just for my own, either the Revelation or Sunset to Dawn, just for the audience? They've been craving you to play one of those tunes. You know, some kind of whatever you feel.
Sunset to Dawn. I don't know if I remember anything.
It's such a great tune, man.
You know.
Kenny Barron, folks.
Okay, I'll play this.
Thanks for making me cry, Kenny. Not bad for an out-of-tune piano, man. Thank you for being part of the show. I look forward to seeing you and Bill and Ron C. in Arizona this year, man.
All right.
All right. All the best. This is the Jake Feinberg Show. We'll be back later.
You.